Are you familiar with the 600 Club? It should not be confused with the 700 Club, the wildly popular religious talk show hosted by Pat Robertson on the Christian Broadcasting Network. That club was named after the network's original 700 founding contributors. The 600 Club, on the other hand, refers to the baseball players in Major League history who have hit 600 home runs. If you know nothing about sports or baseball, you at least know that 600 home runs is a lot. It's a big, impressive number. Members of the 600 Club include Ken Griffey Jr., Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, and, of course, Darth Vader music, Barry Bonds. The Yankees' third baseman, Alex Rodriguez, turns 35 today, and he is on the cusp of becoming the seventh and youngest member of the 700 Club. He's just one home run away. So why isn't this a bigger deal? Why isn't the entire country whipped up into a home run frenzy, chomping at the bit every time the slugger steps up to home plate? Why did one New York State paper poll readers online to see if they even care? Well, maybe it's because about 40% of respondents do not. And this is in New York. Now, I should admit here, I am a huge sports fan. I love baseball. I'm obsessed with basketball. I follow the Chicago Bulls the way day traders follow currency fluctuations. The Kyle Korver signing made my heart flutter. Okay, look, just because I'm like sports doesn't mean I'm not also a pretty big nerd as well. But the point is that for sports fans, it is a Sisyphean task to escape wall-to-wall talk about Alex Rodriguez. He is one of the most covered and sometimes uncovered sports stars in the world. But this time, with this milestone, with this ginormous star about to break into the 600 Club any day now, why is there this collective shrug? Joining us now is Dave Zirin, sports editor for The Nation and author of the new book, Bad Sports: How Owners Are Ruining the Games We Love. Dave, it's great to have you here in person.
Great to be here, Chris.
All right, so let's start with this A-Rod thing. Do you agree it's not that big a deal and it's sort of strange that it isn't?
Oh, absolutely. And this has everything to do with Major League Baseball. They have placed Alex Rodriguez in the Major League Baseball version of the Witness Protection Program. And there's he is the Courtney Love of Major League Baseball. They find him embarrassing and past his day. And there's a reason for that. And it's a very simple one. It's because he is an admitted steroid user. And so to talk about Alex Rodriguez's 600th home run is also to cast light on the entire steroid era, which the Commissioner Bud Selig oversaw. And owners have skated on the steroid era. They have avoided all accountability on the steroid era, spectacularly so. And so then to celebrate A-Rod, you raise uncomfortable questions like, what did owners know and when did they know it?
Yeah, you know, I want to talk about the steroid era because it occurs to me that in some respects, what happened in the steroids era was almost as it kind of prefigured all these scandals and corruption that we had throughout the decade. Everything from Enron, Wall Street.
I would argue that the public funding of stadiums did the same thing. I mean, you've had public stadium funding over the last 20 years. You also had the corruption with the steroid era. And the public funding of stadiums, you have the socializing of debt and the privatizing of profit. That's exactly what you could argue the bank bailouts were as well. And so a lab for that was professional sports. And for the steroid era, it's about the absence of accountability at the top. I mean, you look at everything from Enron, British Petroleum, and the rest of it. They saw in Major League Baseball how owners skated on what was supposed to be a time of scandal. Think about the congressional hearings on steroids. How many owners were called out in front of the hot lights of Congress? 0. How many general managers? 1. Brian Sabian of the San Francisco Giants. It's like one player said to me off the record, he said to me, why is it when it comes to steroids, distribution is a team issue, but punishment is an individual issue?
Yeah, although I want to push back a little bit because, I've been doing some reporting on this, actually, for the book I'm working on. And, the union really does seem to have kind of done a lot to keep the steroids issue going, insofar as they really resisted in a kind of block way any attempts to introduce any kind of testing regime. I mean, it does seem like they have some accountability for that era as well.
There's definitely some accountability there. But here's the thing about the union. They have a job. And the job is to protect the interests of the players. And there were a lot of questions raised about the reliability of the tests, about privacy issues. And let's remember, the only reason why we know that A-Rod is a steroid user is because of a leaked private test.
Right.
Ironically,
exactly the worst nightmare, right? The thing that the players' union didn't want.
And ironically, it was a list that the union had that they were supposed to destroy and didn't destroy it in time before the feds raided their offices, and then the names around Barry Bonds, and then the names started to leak one by one, the water torture in Major League Baseball. Owners have one job also, and it's to protect the integrity of their sport and the integrity of their leagues. And they have failed spectacularly at that task.
I want to go back to this the stadium issue because
Sure.
it's you cover it really well in the book, and you go around the country, you go to these places that are just there's no job creation, there's nothing. You have these industrial cores that are just hollowed out, and there's this gleaming new stadium that is the economic development agenda of the local government.
Right. Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee,
exactly.
Pittsburgh.
Does it work? I mean, does it? You know, the argument they make is this is going to spur job creation. This is going to be this big economic driver. It's going to revitalize our downtown. Does that actually happen?
Look, economists from Fox News to MSNBC to Democracy Now! Across the political spectrum, they will say the same thing. They will say stadium funding does not provide a return on its investment. And $30 billion have been spent on stadium construction over the last generation. It's become a substitute for anything resembling an urban policy in this country, and I would argue it has a body count. It's very real. Look at Minnesota, where the bridge collapsed in 2008. The bridge collapsed, sending 13 people to their deaths. The same week, they were going to break ground on a new $300 million publicly funded stadium, courtesy of Mr. Anti-Pork Tim Pawlenty. Hypocrisy alert, big sign. You could argue the same thing in Washington, D.C. 5 minutes from my house, the Metro went off the tracks. The Metro trains dated back to the Jimmy Carter administration, and it happened the same year they debuted a gleaming billion-dollar stadium for the Washington Nationals. It's an ugly business.
You know, and in Houston, I was just going back through the Lexus on this. It was Ken Lay. It was not only Enron Stadium, it was Ken Lay who campaigned for the taxpayers to float all this public money to build Enron Stadium, and they won that election, and they built it, and then their name was on it.
But now it's imposing Minute Maid Park, which strikes fear into the hearts of everyone who has to play the Houston Astros.
Last thing here, there was a time in this country when there were labor reporters in which industrial relations, there's an industrial relations school that was started at Cornell, people followed labor management relationships. Sports is the only place where we do that anymore, don't you think? I mean, it just seems like, and it's a place where the normal rules of labor management are very different in some ways, but some of those same struggles are still there.
Well, we're going to see that because you're looking at lockouts in the National Football League and in the NBA coming up in the next year, I think. And I interviewed the head of the NFL Players Association, DeMaurice Smith, and he said to me, look, we're making this a broader class issue. When they lock us out, we're going to say, you're not just locking out us, you're locking out maintenance workers, you're locking out day laborers, you're locking out the people who clean up the stadiums and sell beer, and you're actually affecting a broader swath of people in the context of 10% unemployment. And I think it's a strategy that might resonate.
That lockout is going to be something to really watch.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? 280-pound guys on the picket line? We'll see what happens.
Dave Zirin, he is the sports writer. He's a colleague of mine at The Nation magazine.
Yes.
He's got this new book, which I'm going to show. Oh, it's up there with the graphic. Bad Sports, How Owners Are Ruining the Game That We Love. Dave, thanks so much for coming and talking to me.
My privilege, Chris.
Yeah, really appreciate it.